like this. I like this.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to Beyond the Gatekeepers. I am Dr. Vanessa M. Brown. I am excited to be here with you. I am your moderator and your expediter for tonight. I'm going to move this along, and we have some great guests here with us on tonight. I want to thank our Facebook Live audience for joining us tonight, as well as our YouTube audience as well. And I would ask that you continue to please share this Facebook Live on tonight. Let me bring on our first guest, not a guest, always with us every week. Excited always to have her in the person of Bishop Yvette A. Flunder. She is our presiding prelate of the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries and the senior pastor of City of Refuge United Church of Christ in Oakland, California. Bishop Flunder, please come and greet the people and let them know what this show is about on tonight.
Well, good evening, everyone. What a joy and privilege to be back together again. Sounds like a song. What a blessing. And to be in the company of some incredible leaders tonight. We're having some conversations, and particularly with regard to the wonderful mini-series, The Black Church, which has been sponsored by in a number of very well-known funders. It's a PBS event. It's a Ford Foundation event. It is a opportunity to be in conversation with the Reverend Dr. Skip Gates, our wonderful friend who's known throughout theology and theological education and church history. He's an incredible theologian and historian as it relates to the Black church. And we've gone through one phase, one opportunity, one part of the conversation about the Black church. And already the internet is filled with opinions and ideas about the first opportunity, the first offering of the Black church double hitter. We have one night and a second night. So if the first night brought a lot of conversation, I can tell you straight out, the second night is certainly going to. I've had the opportunity to see both. So it is my privilege tonight to talk some about what was there and what was missing as it related to the Black church and where are we headed now? The entity that we call the Black church that is by no means monolithic. Where are we headed now? So glad to have our guests, and it's good to have you join us for this conversation just before we see the second The Black church opportunity tonight. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Bishop Flunder. We are all excited about it. Our next person that's coming, also not a guest, and they help us every week as well, Bishop Carlton D. Pearson. He's an author, progressive spiritual teacher, and thought leader. Bishop Pearson, come and greet the people for us, please.
Come and go with me to my Father's house. There's love. That's a song that every Black American knows. I've heard at least over the last 50 years. It was common to go to church on Sunday. We used to say some folks go to church, other folks have church. But I think we're being reminded now, especially with COVID and us not being able to go to church or have church, to finally be the church. But I'm not sure everybody knows what that is. What I saw last night, I was interrupted, as you know, Bishop, because my friend Carmen transitioned last night. So I was totally involved in managing some of that. But the idea of going to church and being with the saints, hearing the songs, that was not only our spiritual hub, it was our social station. And that's where we interacted. And in the 21st century, that's changing. Last night was scholarly, historical, philosophical. Tonight, it may be a little bit more experiential. I've not seen it. But I think that we have experienced church and we have felt church. I think now we have to start thinking church. You know, as I say, the universe doesn't judge us so much by what we feel as by what we think about what we feel, and what we think about what we think about what we feel, and then what we think about that. So we're now having to think differently and think more focused about why we're there and if we still want to do this. We got the millennials out there. There's a whole generation of kids that didn't grow up in Sunday school today. And their parents, not just their grandparents, their parents are educated, their grandparents are educated, or they're in a pluralistic culture, so it's not really as black as it once was. And some who used to be faithful in church are embarrassed about it going. So we're having to shift some of that. This is a pretty evolving time for us in America, but certainly the black church, which has carried such a heavy influence on the culture. And now that's waning a little bit, and we're not sure what to do in between the spaces. It's going to be an interesting conversation tonight. Glad you're all here.
Thank you so much, Bishop Pearson. And you are right. The second part of it is very experiential, very experiential. Our next guest tonight is Apostle Edward Donalson. He is the director of the Doctor of Ministry program at Seattle University and the dean of TFIM College of Bishops. Welcome, Apostle Edward Donalson. So glad to have you here with us.
Thank you so much. I just want to join my voice with the chorus of appreciation for the PBS special to honor Bishop Flunder and her wonderful work in the special, and of course to say hello to Bishop Pearson, Uncle Carlton. It's good to see everybody tonight. What I want to say is that the church, after watching, and I've watched both, I will admit, I watched last night's and I've already watched tonight via YouTube, but the church is irrelevant if it is so concretized in the modality of ritual and routine that it cannot adapt to the needs of those it claims to serve. And I think what we have seen last night and what we will continue to see even tonight is the ways in which we are exposed by our own concretization of what we think church should be, and our need to begin to be more nimble and adaptable for a forward movement. I'm excited about this conversation and about what we can imagine together as really what is the beloved community.
Thank you so much, Apostle Donalson. Our next guest, Reverend Naomi Washington-Leapheart, is the Director for Faith-Based and Interfaith Affairs for the Mayor's Office of Public Engagement in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Reverend Naomi Washington-Leapheart, come and greet the people for us, please.
Good evening, everybody. It's my joy and honor to sit with family, to talk about family business, right? I was so proud to tune in and see friends and comrades and prayer partners and, you know, folks who are not just writing about from an objective position what they have not experienced and lived. Folks who have a love relationship, perhaps it's a kind of up and down love relationship, but a love relationship to and with the Black church. And so it just fills me with pride as a daughter of the Black church, who is fiercely committed to it, even as I am fiercely critical of it. I am still, it's mine to critique, you know? And so I'm grateful to be here with you all and to raise some questions that I saw in the last 24 hours in social media land. You know, one of them was, must the Black church stay Black? And I had some things to say on that post, but it's a question folk are asking in the midst of the, I think, proliferation of multi-church, multicultural church, multiracial church. Must the Black church stay Black? And then somebody else asked, you know, how can anybody who does not identify as a Black Christian comment on the Black church? And, you know, some of what came up in the first part anyway was, you know, the religious variety that Black folk have always brought to any conversation about faith. And so, again, in the spirit of Bishop Flunder and TFAM, widening the table, being radically inclusive, thinking about who can be present at the table to talk about Black church and Black Christianity. So those are just some of the things on my mind. I'm looking forward to our conversation together.
Thank you so much, Reverend Naomi. Our next guest is coming in the person of Bishop-elect Roger Billingsley-Hayes. He is the senior pastor of Renewal Fellowship United Church of Christ in North Carolina. Bishop-elect Roger, please greet the people.
Well, blessings. It is such an honor to be able to be here with this incredible group of individuals. Truly to my bishop, my mother, as I call her and lovingly know her. To each and every one of you, I honor you on tonight. I think one of the things that really comes up for me, I enjoyed watching the show on last night. I'm looking forward to tonight. I've got it set, so if I miss a little bit of the first part, I can go back and look. But one of the things that keeps coming up for me is what the church should be, yes, but also who are we doing church? You know, who are we in this journey of doing church, and how is that shaping us, and how has it shaped us? I am certainly a product of the church. I grew up in the church. Last night, watching many of those old hymns, what we called common meter hymns. These were they would line them off, you know, with the do, re, mi, sa, fo, and they would roll with it. You know, I grew up hearing those types of singing. I grew up with that type, and it took me, I transported right to those red clay hills in Boomer, North Carolina. I was right there on last night listening to some of that. But also it reminds me of the fact, as a same gender loving man, that I too am welcome to this table because she is a part of me. The church is a part of me. And it took me some time to really establish that and to get very clear about that it wasn't someone that just the heterosexual community or just this group of people could really talk about the real worth and the value of the church. But I too am welcome to that table. And I also have something to say about her. So I'm excited about tonight and excited about this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Bishop-elect. We appreciate you. And last but certainly not least is Reverend YaNi Davis. And they are the founder and managing director of My Supernatural Life. Reverend YaNi, please greet the people, and then we're going to get right into our conversation.
Absolutely. Peace, 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 family. Religion is a sentiment. We try to set a precedent on how to live a good existence, but I'm just persistent. It's matter of factly. I know it's got to be all the love overflowing from inside of we as the collective. It is such an honor and a joy to be here today, family, as Reverend YaNi Davis. And even I'd like to talk about being a reverend and what that means to me. Right, as a Black, queer, millennial, disabled, gender non-conforming body, it has truly been a trying and challenging journey to make it to this point of actually being a reverend, an ordained reverend in the church, when my works have spoken for me year and year after year after year. So I give thanks even that I can stand in this place as a reverend with all of you. Bishop Flunder, thank you for your example as you set the course, set it out, right? For folks like me to show up authentically in our truth, right? In spirit and in truth. So I just want to honor you and thank you for that, right? The ability to end up on broadcast, the ability to travel all around the world and be seen, right? In authenticity and in truth. So thank you so much. And it truly is an honor to be here today. If I take you back about 20 years ago, I know I look like a little young thing. I'm a little young. But about 20 years ago, I started doing hip hop in the church, on the Holy Hip Hop underground scene in New York. And folks were looking at me, my own mama, my own daddy, the first lady, and my father, Reverend Dr. Edward Davis, thought there was something wrong with their child, where I'm rolling around in my jeans and my sweats and going from church to church, right? Speaking the good news. And so for me, I'm all about creative theology. I'm all about the imagination. I'm all about expanding discomfort expansion and discomfort in this season to make room for all of my folks, right? And I think about intersectionality. Look, I want to get rid of all that intersectionality and allow folks to live into wholeness. So that's what I'm here for today. How do we live into wholeness? How do we live into wholeness as a church, as a people, as a community, and as a world? Thank you, family, for having me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend YaNi. We are so glad to have each and every one of you here tonight to the Beyond the Gatekeepers viewership, Facebook Live, YouTube. Happy to have you. Thank you. Keep sharing, keep liking. We are already into the conversation. We're going to get right into it again. To be clear, the question is, what is the future of the Black church? What is the future of the Black church? And I think that just as a daughter as well of the Black church, from a little girl, I want to be able to say that we could start with Reverend Naomi in her direction that she was going in terms of what she was saying that people were commenting on when watching the public broadcast that we saw on last night. I happened to see both of them as well. So Reverend Naomi, let's talk about some of those questions, and then we could kind of remember, this is a conversation. You all can go in any direction you want.
Sure. Thank you, Bishop-elect. I mean, I think that one of the things that I appreciated about this exploration of the Black church historically was the emphasis on the fact that we did not come, I think it was Dr. Anthony Penn who said, we did not come as blank slates, as tabula rasa. We did not come without a sense of spirituality, without faith, without connection to the divine, to the transcendent. And so we found a way to adapt our faith tradition and connect it to our lived realities. We needed a faith that could help us endure the brutality of chattel slavery, the brutality of sharecropping, and then segregation and Jim Crow, right? We needed a faith that would respond to our lived realities. And that for some folks in the contemporary Black church means that something about Christianity lost its purity. The idea that the church that they went to, the first African Baptist church in Savannah, that had the markings on the pews of Arabic writing, connecting back to the roots of Islam, Black Islam, right? You know, folks were saying, we need not celebrate this part of our history. Or how can John Legend, this thread went on to say, how can John Legend, a person who has some peripheral tangential relationship to and with the Black church, but himself does not regularly attend anybody's church. He doesn't regularly call his pastor's name when he's thanking folk at these award ceremonies. How can he speak?
Well, he actually said that he was not even involved with church at all anymore.
At all. He does not affirm God. Right. And this thread that I was witnessing took issue with his involvement, right? And so, you know, my question is, can we survive as an institution if we are so threatened by what we might call outside agitators, right? Which is language that we're familiar with as we fight for liberation as part of the movement for Black lives. This idea that people come from the outside to stir up and disrupt what is an inside game. And, you know, I need to say that, first of all, the Black church influence has been so thorough and so powerful that non-Christian Black folk have something to say about that influence, have been influenced, right? And that Black faith is more porous. It can contain the kind of panoramic that we've been weaving all this time, that includes wisdom from non-Christian traditions. And so I was chiming in to say, I'm really disappointed here. Yeah. Non-religious Black folk and non-Christian Black folk should be able to weigh into this conversation. And if our faith is so threatened by that dialogue, then it's not worth the paper it's printed on.
That's excellent, Reverend Naomi. That is excellent. And just to say more about John, because I've actually worked with him, he is a son of the church. He is a son of the church. His parents, he grew up in the church. He is a son. I don't care if you don't go, if you don't ever go again. He said he is a tongue talking, you know. He understands the way of church. He just doesn't go to, and I know so many artists that are walking that same line, that have been that same way from Patti LaBelle on down. They are sons and daughters of the church. They just no longer have that same association with the church as they used to. Bishop Flunder.
Well, you know, my heart and mind is all over the place. So I think it is important, however, that I'd hone in on something that has really been on my mind. Primarily because of the conversation that Dr. Gates had here at City of Refuge. He spent, by the way, a substantial amount of time, a full day, and then came back for worship on Sunday. I think it's important for me to say that we talked about a good many things, but one of the things that really, really stuck with me is that this whole idea of mimicry of our oppressors is essentially unkind first to our oppressors. Because what we are suggesting when we do that is that there is no way for our oppressors to surrender their oppression. When we take it and hold on to it ourselves and justify it or keep it secret even, to in some way save the oppressor, it is very much like a person who's in an abusive relationship and does not want to embarrass their spouse in front of the rest of the community. And so they cover up their bandage up their sores and their bruises and wear sunglasses and come out and pretend like nothing is really going on so that they won't embarrass. And it is unkind and wrong for the oppressor, which for me, as it relates to the church, means that we need to dig deeply and find the ways in which we have allowed our being oppressed to make us really good oppressors. And we need to take our sunglasses off, if you understand what I'm saying, and uncover our wounds and tell the truth about what it is that we have really been through. It does no good for the oppressor. It certainly does no good for us. But if we truly love people, we need to stop calling wrong right and calling right wrong, calling good evil and calling evil good. Even if evil will fill your church up, that doesn't make it good. Even if it will give you six-figure money in your salary, it doesn't mean that it's good. So the real question that I have is the degree to which we are willing to stop mimicking our oppressor, even if our oppressor looks just like the man or the woman in the mirror. Let's move away from it. Let's name it. Let's have the courage to name it. And I'll tell you one other thing, because I know we have to be brief tonight. So this is what I want to leave with you. I talked to a young man who had been serially oppressed and used sexually by a very well-known pastor friend of ours. All of you would know if I told you who it was. And I said to him one day, I was in New York City. I said to him one day, so at what point are you going to share openly and honestly what you have experienced? He said, I can't do it until he dies. To which I said, so then how does that help all of the others that are also having this experience? He said, I can't deal with responsibility essentially for them. I can't do it to him, he said, until he dies. It stayed with me. And it wasn't long after that, because Bishop-elect Vanessa was with me. I said to the young man after the person had died, I said, well, is it time now? Do you think you can say something now? Perhaps there will be healing to the others. And just like you would suspect, he didn't want to besmirch, how's it go, the memory of his spiritual father as he related. I said, you know, what we've got to stop doing is mimicking the oppressors. Wherever oppressors show up, no matter what color, no matter what experience, no matter what denomination, no matter where we learned it, we need to stop mimicking the oppressors, because we are abusing the oppressor and abusing ourselves in our communities.
Thank you, Bishop. Apostle Donalson, you want to also give into this answer? And then I'm going to ask for Bishop Pearson, Bishop-elect Roger, and Reverend YaNi in that order.
Thank you. And thank you for that, Bishop Flunder, as you lift our lack of mimicking the oppressors. I think we have forgotten that the Black church in all of her iterations is a project of non-normativity, right? If imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist, heteropatriarchy birthed white theology, the Black church, all of what it means to be the Black church, has been the antidote and the response to white supremacy and the narrative of hegemonic theology. Somehow we lost our non-normativity because we didn't want to be queered, right? And I don't mean that in a sexual term, but really in a queer theory term. We didn't want to be touched by what is other. But the reality is we have always been other and othered. And we have to determine what are the boundaries of our acceptance of our own otherness. And when are we really going to look in the face of the divine and see what is holy, and see the ulteriourness or the otherness of the divine that's manifest in who we are as individuals and collective. So we are reifying, I think, oppression because we no longer want to be a project of non-normativity. But the future church, and where we are pushing toward and moving toward, is to eliminate the ground of normativity. We want to completely dismiss normativity as a part of our way of being in the world, because the truth is we are a non-normative people. And I just want to lift that up as we consider who is the beloved community and who we are going to be going forward.
Thank you. Bishop Pearson? You're muted, Bishop. We see Mother in the back too. Tell Mother we said God bless her.
Mama.
Hi, Mama.
Yeah.
Mom, they're saying hi to you. They're saying hi to you. That's my 91-year-old holiness mama.
Hi, Mama.
After interestingly, her grandfather was white. Her great grandfather was white, and her father had to leave that town and became a holiness preacher. And so there's a lot of information in them. We're 4 generations classical Pentecostal church people. But as I've said on this program before, I think not only till recently, both the Black and white evangelical church got King James and King Jesus mixed up. And our brand of Christianity is taught by the oppressors. The language of Christianity is the these and thous of 16th century King's English. Anglo people, European people, Western doctrines and Western cultural iconoclasms. We're trying to shake out of that because their presentation of God and Jesus is white. And we have to get that in our mind. The mere fact that we have to say the Black church shows how pronounced racism prevails in the Western world. You don't hear that kind of terminology in other countries in the East. The Catholic Church doesn't even talk about the Black Catholic Church. They just talk about the Catholic Church because they're integrated all over the planet. So we're wrestling with centuries and at least 2,000 years of entrenched indoctrination, basically about a white Jesus and a God who looks like Einstein or somebody. And, you know, that when you were little, I could ask any of you younger ones, this brilliant young Reverend Davis, geez, I think that may be an example of the future of the Black church. She presents this new millennial freshness that's very intriguing to me. I'm a traditionalist by nature, but I'm expanding to see that we're going to have to deconstruct the religion as we've known it and experienced it. Not just the Black experience, but the foundation of the Christian experience in the Western world is seed into racism and exclusionary, brutal treatment of human beings that don't look or act or think like we do. We need to deconstruct a lot and go through our own reconstruction, our own rebirthing, our own rebranding, our own rebuilding of who we are, a literal rebirthing of the church. We don't know what that means yet. The closest to it may be what Reverend Davis suggested in the way she started with the rapping. And that was like the rhetorical preaching in the pulpit. Wasn't no Hammond B3 behind it, but you could put some music and she's just this free, unconstrained entity. We want that, but we don't believe that we at our age can do it. So it's going to be interesting. We're going to have to continue this because we're not even close corporately to what we're headed toward. But I think the closest to it might be her.
Indeed, Bishop. Indeed, and Bishop elect Roger's gonna go, but you have said well. This has to be a two-part conversation. So I look forward to seeing you all next week, Bishop elect Hayes.
I tell you, this is got my wheels just spinning because, as I said earlier, I think it's one of the big things for me is who are we doing church? Who are we that is doing church? And when I say that, I'm thinking more so about how am I showing up in this thing called church? And then when I show up in my authentic self, when I show up as the fullness of who I am, does that disqualify me from doing church as I think of it? Or does it qualify me to do church as I am revisioning it? As I'm continuing to look it over and over and over, am I seeing something new in the thing I call church so that I fit inside of it? I think for far too long, as Bishop was speaking to this normalization, Apostle Donalson was speaking to this normalization, I do not have to conform to be in the church because I am the church. So the very thing that enlightens her, the very thing that brings her to her fullness is the very thing that I think a lot of times we are missing. And that's just truth. It's the truth. It's the truth is why TFAM exists. It's truth why Renewal Fellowship exists. It's truth why Bishop Carlton Pearson could walk out from all that he had to be who he became. You know, it is truth, and truth still sets us free. It's not a thought that's past. It is still very much real today. So for the Black church, what does she really need? She needs truth. But I also think that truth is not just about telling the business or spilling the beans, but I think it is about being our authentic selves. When I bring my authentic self to her, then she not only embraces me, but she becomes me. And that's the beauty of it all. So I embrace it, and I have no problem with the Black church. I have no problem with my placement in the Black church. I have no problem by saying that I am a part of her because I am her and she is me. And in anywhere and any place where I don't fit, if you would, then I just know that's not her anyway. Because the where her is where I am. And where I am is where she is, you know. Another thing that comes up for me, Bishop oftentimes speaks of this, is that we have to be careful not to do Church of God in Christ in gay or Baptist in gay, you know, that I just bring the oppressive behaviors, the misogynistic behaviors, the beat down behavior, the need to create others behavior, and just bring it over into my setting and then call that okay. But truth will set us free and will liberate us from those same types of practices that causes us to stand in our pulpits and preach those same messages that we grew up hearing that are just as damaging and abusive coming out of a gay mouth as it was coming out of any other mouth. So.
Thank you, Bishop. Reverend Naomi, you want to say something based upon what he said, and then Reverend YaNi.
Yeah, I want to build on, extend something that Bishop introduced earlier about this idea of mimicking the ethic, the action of the oppressor. You know, I think that given our experience as kind of stolen, enslaved people in this land, we had to learn certain coping mechanisms, certain ways of being to survive. And I think one of those survival tools was white piety. White piety is grounded in deception. It's how people could go to church on Sunday morning and lynch somebody Sunday afternoon. You know, it's how, preachers, white ministers could have service in the sanctuary Sunday morning and have a Klan meeting in the sanctuary Sunday night. I mean, it's white piety is grounded in deception. The practice of lying became sacred in white Christian America, what Robert Jones would call white Christian America, right? And so we learned, if you want to live, I don't know who it was that said in the first part of the documentary that you had to live so that you could rebel, right? So survival became the priority. We learned then that we had to perform a kind of piety in order to survive as a coping mechanism. But as Bishop was saying, we know that it now is a trauma response. This idea that we preserve fabrication. We want to keep the lying intact. The secrets must be protected, right? And so the reason I'm so, part of my kind of sacred text is what Bishop says all the time, which is, I told the truth and I survived, right? What if we took it and molded it in our Blackness and said that truth is actually the survival strategy, that vulnerability is the survival strategy. It is part of ridding ourselves of what we've internalized and begun to practice as holy, because we first learned it as a survival practice, and we don't need to cope anymore in the same ways. I'm not saying they're not killing us, but we don't need to do that. So I just wanted to sort of build upon what you all have already been so brilliantly saying.
Thank you, Reverend Naomi. Reverend YaNi?
Yes. Oh my goodness. So much to say, so little time. I'm going to start here. Giving thanks to my ancestors. My grandfather was a great bishop in the Kojic church. So as a young child, was able to witness him going all around the world as a bishop in Bermuda, going everywhere, preaching, teaching, right? Wielding the spirit so that people could learn to live into their own healing. Then I think of my father, Reverend Dr. Edward Davis, has been a Presbyterian pastor for 45 years, right? So I've experienced the uprising of the spirit. I've experienced the chosen frozen, and now am a Christian, a pastor in the Christian church, Disciples of Christ, right? And was always going to the Baptist church, to the AME church, to get away from the quiet Presbyterians. So I had this experience of going many different places within the Black church, even the Black Catholic church, as I was in Atlanta, Georgia, matriculating through Spelman College. I'm also a kidney transplant survivor, right? So there was a point where I actually died, y'all, where I was unconscious for a couple of days and I came back. And so I think that speaks a lot to who I am in the world. And thank you, Bishop Pearson, for your words of love and encouragement. I actually have folks that have gone to your church and have been ministered to by you. So thank you for what you've done to even speak to my generation and those that are surrounding me. I want to say this, that a lack of accountability, I believe, is going to be the demise demise of the church. There have been many experiences where I've sat in rooms with leaders in the church, have advocated for myself in other communities, and have not gotten the support or the help that was needed and necessary. There's a lack of accountability coming up in the church. As I watched the broadcast that came to me, and as you started us out in such a great way, Bishop, oppressed people, but it's freedom time. And I'm so thankful for that. As we think about hurt people, it's healing time. When I was sick, I had to go from a place of I am healing to I am healed, right? So how do we stand in our truth as a church that is not dying, that is not failing, and even bring in some Afrofuturistic elements of where we're going and where we're heading, thinking outside the box, getting real metaphysical. I believe that in the church, due to traditionalism, we've forgotten the creative imagination that we've been given. In John 1:1, it says, in the beginning was the word. How are we using our words? Are we using our words wisely? Yes, we've got to focus on truth. As I think about the Black church, I think about abuse, and I think about the world. I think about these systems and these structures. I believe what we're experiencing with the Black church and some folks that have had to leave and come back is Stockholm syndrome. Some folks have been abused. We have nowhere else to go. And so we come back to these spaces that we call the Black church or the Black experience, Black sacred space. And we find ourselves continuing to be abused based off of Stockholm syndrome. Also, as I think about it, as I was taking my notes yesterday, in a similar vein, in terms of what everyone else is talking about, we have got to break up with our codependency with the Confederacy and capitalism, where we are still functioning under these ways, where we are saying, yes, master, what do we do? What's right? How do we go? What do we, And I think it takes a great level of independence now as a Black people, as a Black culture, right? Implementing our agency as it relates to creating sacred space for our folks and for our people. And so I'm glad that there are church planters arising from my generation and the next generation, spiritual entrepreneurs that are rising, stepping into their rightful place as leaders. No. I may never be a bishop like my granddad, right? I may never be a pastor for 45 years in a Presbyterian church. But one thing I always tapped into growing up was the both and of it all. I can get 250 people to show up at the club, at the coffee shop, at the coffee house. I can't get no 250 people to church. So we got to think expansively, and deal with the expansion discomfort, right? Not necessarily growing pains, because I don't want none of us to be in pain as we think about holistic living for the body, mind, and spirit. But let's live into this expansion discomfort.
Excellent, YaNi. Thank you so much. Fire. All right, I'm going to take one question, and there are several, right, already in the chat. We only could take one because we only have 13 minutes, right? And so I want to take this question from Reverend Cantina, Washington-Leapheart. And the question is, I wonder if the church has left them or us more than them having left the church. I wonder if the church has left them, or us, more than them having left the church. And I'm going to start with Bishop Flunder.
I would say yes, Reverend Cantina, without question. I think that that we as an institution, if we think of us, all of us together, when we're very different, but if you think of all of us together, it's very clear that we have moved in the direction of what we consider success. And moving in the direction of what we consider success, and the way that the world defines success, and the way that our times define success, has moved us away from a lot of fundamental realities that were a part of how we survived all of it, how we survived being snatched, how we survived middle passage, how we survived trying to take care of ourselves, our bodies, our families, how we survived breaking away through the wilderness on our way to freedom, how we survived creating our own Greenvilles, how we survived having the susus. How am I doing with that? How we survived setting up our own beauty shops and then creating hot combs in order to hot comb our hair. How we were all of those things that we did for us, by us. And then we saw other people doing church a certain way. And we looked at that and said, I want to succeed like that. I want to have that. I want to do that. I want to be that. And that was not the thing that held us together as community. And so I do think with all my heart that what we have done is allowed ourselves to give up or surrender up our identity, the things that are uniquely Black, uniquely African influenced, African fed, African blessed. I think we have moved away from it for a different idol of success. And it is not successful. I wish Bishop Pearson had time to tell you the real difference because he knows the difference. It is not successful for the soul. It is not successful for the community. And it is not successful for the divine call that is on our lives to shift this atmosphere. We got to go back and get some things in order to bring them into what it is we're called to today.
Thank you, Bishop Flunder. Now I'm going to ask if anybody wants to add to it instead of just calling on you. If you have something to say about that question or add to anything, yes.
Yeah, can I say that Martin Luther said that the church is a whore, and then he said, "But that whore is my mother." And I think what happens in marginalized communities is oppression teaches us two things. It teaches us how to be oppressed, and it teaches us how to oppress. And the reality is sometimes as people who have been marginalized, not people on the margins, but people who have been marginalized, we adopt that identity so that we can dismiss ourselves from the institution when in fact we are the institution. So when it's, have we left the church or has the church left us? Neither or, right? Because I am the church. We have allowed other people to claim ownership of something that we've not excluded ourselves from. There is no church without all of our identity, without all of our personhood, without bringing our, as Bishop Flunder would say, impossibilities to the table. Like, what era of the church was minus women? Really? I mean, the PBS special talked about Pentecostalism, but it didn't talk about the Pentecostal women who were the trailblazers. What era of the church was minus LGBTQ people? I'll wait. When did that happen? In the Black church. Name an era of music that didn't come out of queer space. Feminine energy, right? So this idea of us leaving the church or the church leaving us, neither. The church has always been and always will be the people. It is the universal, mystical body of Christ, the body of baptized and unbaptized believers. It is those with whom the divine has made the divine's own witness present. For the spirit self will bear witness with your spirit that you are his.
So I want to connect this question to another question I saw come through the comments about whether the notion of a Black church is antiquated. This connects to that initial question I saw on social media last night: must the Black church stay Black? And I'm just going to go ahead and say that, in my humble opinion, yes. That it's clear, if we look at U.S. history alone, that Jesus is not safe in the white church. You know, I'm thinking about scholar, indigenous Christian theologian Robert Warrior and others who remind us that it's complicated. When did God become an occupier? When did Jesus become a wild, wild west cowboy? When did Jesus become the CEO? The head of empire, right? So I think, to Apostle's point earlier, the Black church developed as the antithesis to the taking of Jesus, the manipulation of Jesus to serve white supremacy's ends. So yes, we need a Black church in whatever form. I mean, I'm not talking about a four-wall situation. I'm saying we need a Black religious consciousness that manifests in all of these ways, that is politically, socially, economically, and spiritually opposed to the forces that are again grounding white piety, white Christian America, right? And so I just wanted to name that. No, we're not talking about something that's antiquated, that's unnecessary anymore. We need a Black moral consciousness, a radical Black religion, because Jesus has not been safe in white hands.
Excellent, Reverend Naomi. Absolutely. I hope that we are going to all do our best to free Jesus. Jesus needs to be free. We need to unchain Jesus. I hope we do our best. See, we sing that song, I am free. Praise the Lord, I'm free, no longer bound. Well, we need to free Jesus so Jesus can sing that song with us.
Or loose the strong man, as he said
Yeah,
himself.
come
He wasn't
on.
talking about a demon.
Make it happen.
We just the strong people. The church is fat. It's not growing. I saw this. You ever seen this show about the 600-pound life? The doctor came in there one day. This lady, they showed all the junk food she was eating, but he said, you're dying of malnutrition. And I thought, what? She's 600 pounds. It took a tractor trailer to get her. But she's fat, but she's not growing. In there was a human being that was starving. We're having an issue, as I heard President Obama say the other night, with truth decay. And truth decadence. We need to change the way we view what is true and stop, because Black is not just a color, it's an experience. If you experience what the King James called is creatures, go ye into all the world and preach. These are white, European, British 16th century thinkers that say, go ye into all the world, mean outside their world, and preach the gospel to every creature. That was part of what they were doing in slavery, going over to the creatures in Africa, reaching them with the gospel and with bondage, and presenting white Jesus, a white God, a white is right mentality, washed away. Jesus called them whitewashed sepulchres. And then he said vipers. So the church is that whitewashed sepulcher. And the Black church and the church in general has been preaching crisis more than Christ. We need to reconsider how we're going to be and build and brand ourselves in the 21st century, because the church has picked a fight with the 21st century. Angry. The whole world is leaning towards same gender loving people and freedoms and trans and notice all the commercials on television with integrated couples and gay couples, one after another. I mean, every major product, somebody's behind all that. There's another part of communication that's saying, let's be radically inclusive. I think there'll always be a Black church because there'll always be a Black experience. That has to do with burdensome encumbrances and suppression and racism and bigotry and exclusion. So it's going to take a while to do it, but the universe is correcting some of this itself. I don't know who these people are who are so radically inclusive, but I'm very curious what they're presenting to us through media. The church has not presented what the secular media is presenting when it comes to commercializing their product. We need to commercialize the church as well as maintain our spirituality.
Thank you, Bishop. Thank you so much. Listen, I need to wrap it. It's 8:58. I love you. Part 2 next week. If you all can come back, I promise you, we'll have more dialogue. There are more questions. I see your question, Dr. Rochelle Carr, and all of you that have more questions. Ephraim, I see your questions. We're going to get back to these questions on next week, but watch part 2 because some of the questions you have tonight will be answered in part 2. in part 2 tonight. Bishop Flunder, we love you. We're excited for you, City of Refuge, Mother Miller, and all that will be a part on tonight. Thank you, Beyond the Gatekeepers. Thank you to Bishop Pearson, Bishop-elect Roger, Reverend Naomi, Reverend YaNi, and certainly to Dr. Edward Donalson. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and God bless you tonight.
See ya. Peace and blessing. Don't forget it's when you're rich and famous, YaNi. You're going somewhere good.
Oh,
I ain't going nowhere without y'all.
remember the seniors. Don't forget the seniors.
Yeah. Listen, I feel when she first started, I never heard of her. Her mouth open, and I felt the Holy Ghost. I didn't know her Pentecostal background. She was rapping and rhyming, and there's something on you. You're powerful. Not that I'm not saying that anybody else on the program isn't, but you represent a generation and a presentation that we're not used to. But I'm ready for it.
Yes.
Thank you, Bishop.
I'm ready
Thank
for
you.
you.
Thank you. And this is
You
20
better
years
run
in the
with it.
making, y'all. Before there was a Kanye Sunday service, I was rapping in churches, going around, right? People not understanding what I was doing. And so I've been resurrected. I'm still here for such a time as this. And I thank you, family. I thank you for your
Do your work. Do your work. We got your back.
Amen.
Yeah.
We're gonna announce about the PBS special. It's coming now. People are asking, where is it? And so tonight you can go to PBS, whatever that channel is in your area. If you cannot find it, you can download the PBS app on your phone, on your Android or on your iPhone. You can download the PBS app and you can start to watch it from your phone. You can cast it to your television. Episode 1 and episode 2 are there. Episode 2 is airing tonight. And whatever area you are in, you can view it. It is incredible. We are grateful again for our bishop, for City of Refuge, and for the ways in which they have paid. There's several other people that are on it. Tracy Blackman, Ebony Marshall Termit, so many people. The list goes on and on about the names and the people. Martha Simmons, Reverend Martha Simmons, so many people. And so we want you to tune in tonight. That is the only announcement that we're going to make tonight. Please make sure that you tune in to see the show. Thank you so much. We will see you next week for part 2. Tell somebody they're coming back for part 2. Bless you. Have a great night.